All right, here we go. Let's break down the game that I'll be at. Again, I don't make the pick in the game that I'm going to cover, but I will be at Big Noon Saturday, as always, as Nebraska heads onto the road to take on Ohio State and the Buckeyes. Both teams, by the way, coming off of losses, and both teams desperate to try to get that taste out of their mouth. Nebraska last week got their doors blown off against Indiana, and Indiana's kind of introduction to the country. The last time we saw Ohio State was their loss to Oregon in that thriller up in Eugene, where Will Howard didn't get down in time. They didn't get the field goal, and they lose by 1. And so now they've had that taste in their mouth ever since then. So it feels like that happened a long time ago, and Ohio State has been stewing. So I'm imagining we're going to get a very rested, excited, and a lot of effort from this Ohio State team. On the Nebraska side, remember, Dylan Raiola, their quarterback, he was a one-time Ohio State commit. Early on in his recruiting process, he actually committed to Ryan Day and the Buckeyes, and now he gets to face the Buckeyes for the first time. If we are looking at the Nebraska side, this Nebraska team was overwhelmed last week. Offensively, they were overwhelmed. Dylan Raiola is a guy that, as a true freshman, shows you a lot of great potential, but then there are moments where the floor kind of falls out from under him. And so on the broadcast last week, and even as I was talking on the show last week, what you see is these moments of greatness, and then you see these moments of growth. And what he needs to do is really lean into learning from those moments of growth. Now, they've got to do a better job running the football. They need to do a better job protecting him in the pocket so that he can get the ball down the field. They also need to do a better job winning on the outside. They have not done a great job creating separation and winning and catching the football on the outside. And some of those guys have got to do a better job. And then on the defensive side for Nebraska, you look at, they were totally overwhelmed by this Indiana offense that was spectacular. They've been spectacular, by the way, all year long. So this is not an anomaly. This is not like, oh, one game Indiana came out and played really well on offense. This is the number one scoring offense in the country, this Indiana team. I do think that Nebraska played their worst game last week, and I am expecting something much better. I'm expecting them to go ahead and fix some of the things that we saw last week. The problem is now they're about to face a Buckeyes offense that is littered with star power. It's all over the field. Wide receiver, it's there. Running back, it's there. And so it's going to be tough for them in this game. Ohio State in the first game since Oregon, and also their first game that they will be playing without their left tackle, Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons got banged up, and now he's going to be out for the season. That announcement coming this week from the Buckeyes. That's a loss for them, and it's a significant loss because he was playing at a pretty high level. There were some scouts around the country that I was talking to that were saying that he was playing himself into the upper second round, maybe even the late first round until that injury. So they're going to be playing with what will become a weakened offensive line. I'm interested to see how that affects their run game moving forward. Nebraska's run defense struggled mightily last week against Indiana. So what does Chip Kelly do in this game plan to get the defense going, or the run game going? I think that's something that's very fascinating in this game, and I expect that they'll lean into the run game since they didn't lean into the run game against Oregon. Remember, after a loss, what you want to do as a team is you want to go out and you want to fix the things that you saw that need to be fixed. The run game is one of those. They had the nice Travion Henderson run against the Ducks, and then after that, they did not run the football particularly well. They're going to want to fix that this week against Nebraska. And then the big question, right? The big fix is this defense for Ohio State. And this is why I saved it for the last part. Ohio State's defense in big games has just not been very good over the last few years. They don't get to the quarterback, and they give up far too many explosive plays. And the exact same thing happened in that loss against Oregon. So here they are. They gave up 8 huge plays to the Ducks. They did not record a sack, and something has to change. What I'm most fascinated in this matchup is, what does Jim Knowles do, the defensive coordinator, to change things up? I'm fully expecting them to change something up from a schematics perspective about the way that they rush the quarterback. Remember, Jim Knowles, in his background, has more of a defense that leaned into this specific position called the jack position, and it was a hybrid style position that moved around quite a bit. And the ability to move around that one player who was kind of a linebacker hybrid rusher style player, what that allowed them to do was create more exotic pass rushing looks. We did not see that against Oregon, and candidly, we haven't seen that for a couple of years with Jim Knowles at Ohio State. Do we see him lean more into his history? That's something to be aware of. And I know Buckeye fans and all of you listening out there, you know that that's been a topic of conversation out there in Buckeye land as well. So Nebraska at Ohio State, I'll be there. Big noon kickoff will be there, and Gus, Ginny, and I will have the call. All right, now let's get into the picks here as we start to pick and preview some of these games. Let's start with what I think is a really good and big matchup as we've got Illinois at Oregon. So Illinois is now ranked 20th in the country. Oregon is the new number 1 team in the country. And what does that get you, Dan Lanning? Well, it gets you favored by 21.5. That is a lot. And you're going to understand why as I roll through this. First and foremost, I do love the approach that Oregon is taking. I was skeptical that they would play well last week after a big emotional win at home against Ohio State, and then they had to go on the road against a Purdue team that had not played very well this season, and you're going to be on the road on a Friday night. And I thought, man, that has all the trappings of a game in which you kind of sleepwalk through the first quarter. Wrong. Ducks came out fired up. They came out executing. That was clearly a veteran-led team. Lanning had them ready to play, and that was really impressive to me. Now, is it impressive that they shut out Purdue and they go, and win that game? What was it, 35-0? No, that's not necessarily impressive. What's impressive is how they started the game in what I considered to be prime letdown territory. Dan Lanning understands motivation. He understands process. And the evidence of that is his answer to a question earlier this week in a press conference when he was asked, like, hey, man, how does it feel? Oregon's number 1 in the country for the first time since 2012. Remember, when he first got here, they got their doors blown off. I think it was 49-3 against Georgia in his first game at Oregon. It's like, well, what do you say about that? And he's like, who cares? And I'm like, that's why they were prepared against Purdue. That's the approach that I think Dan Lanning is bringing to the Oregon Ducks, and something that I really love. No letdown last week over Purdue, but now they get Illinois. Okay, so this is not a trap game. This is not a letdown game. This is just a tough game because Illinois is underrated at 20. They are an underrated football team. This Illinois team is not flashy, which I think is one of the reasons why they don't get the credit that they deserve, but they are built in the image of their head coach, Brett Bielema. They are tough, they are physical, and they are sound. Love watching them play on tape, by the way. They do a lot of great things on defense. Their offense, with Altmaier at quarterback, they make enough plays. They take care of the football. And you look up at the end of the day, and they ran the ball for 187 yards on that Michigan defensive front. And that Michigan defensive front, for whatever you think about the Michigan team, is still one of the premier defensive fronts in college football. That still remains true. And Illinois ran it for 187 on that Michigan team, 5 yards per carry. If you look back through the history of the last couple of years of the Michigan defense, that's the most anyone has run on them since the 2022 TCU game in the Fiesta Bowl. That's staggering. Okay, so Illinois can run the football. They are physical. This is an underrated team at 20th in the country. We saw them hang around in Happy Valley earlier this year. That's still their only loss. It was to an undefeated Penn State team in Happy Valley at night, and that was a 7-point game in the fourth quarter. So to me, folks, you know where I'm going with this. 21.5 is just too much. It's just too much. Illinois is tested. This is their 5th game against a ranked opponent in their last 7. And yet Oregon's playing great. Dylan Gabriel is playing great. The defense is playing solid. They're distributing the football on the offensive side. Gabriel finding a way to get Evan Stewart involved has really expanded their offense, because early in the year it was kind of Tez Johnson, maybe Jordan James, and then not much else. But Gabriel has found a way now to distribute the football so that the offense from a production standpoint has a wider lens. I think that has that has paid off in a huge way for Oregon. I just think Illinois is built to stick around in this game. Now, Oregon fans, before you start getting all over me, I just want you to know we are 29-14, so we do know what we're doing here against the spread. However, did you know, Duck fans, that I'm 0-4, 0-4 when picking Oregon games this year? I think you know that. And again, not just outright, but against the spread. So that means that on the season, our show, I'm 29-10 in all the other games, other than Oregon games, 0-4 with the Ducks. So you're welcome, Oregon fans. I'm going to take the points for Illinois. I think Oregon gets the win, but Illinois covers. That's a good omen for the Ducks. I think that this game is somewhere in that like Oregon 34, Illinois, 17 range, right in there. I think Oregon could win handily, but 21.5 is a lot for a team that is so sound and physical as Illinois. Illinois plays solid defense, and so even on the road, I like an Illinois cover in this one. I'm going to take those 21.5, take the Illini in the Oregon win. So Oregon 34-17.
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.